Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm going to give this another minute or two while people come in. If you want to share this out, come on in. We got a lot of interesting information tonight. I'm going to be bringing Doug in right now. Here you go. Take it away, Doug.
There we go. Now I had to unmute my mic. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And tonight we're going to have kind of a fun show. We got John Mihalich, Catherine Kerrigan, and Brenda Stetner in tonight to give an announcement as to what's going on with their modules. We're also going to have a special guest with Rudy Bruce. He's got a special announcement he wants to give out to the audience tonight. And then we're going to go to a couple of special guests as well that will come in and tell us a little bit about what happened yesterday at the various rallies out in the West as well as here in Toronto. So, hey, let's get started. John, Catherine, Brenda, why don't you tell the audience what you've been doing for the last, 4 weeks now? 3 weeks? I'm just going to shut up and give you guys the floor, but you have to actually unmute your microphones in order to talk.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. I know we've probably got some new viewers tonight. I posted in a couple of new groups for people to come and learn. We've got some pretty good topics tonight to go over, but what we wanted to make our big announcement about is our 8-module series that we're now releasing, where we're going to hold and host Zoom calls to walk you through history on what exactly has happened since 1867 to current day. And we've managed to put it in terms that are going to be much better to understand than a legalese terms. We're looking forward to showing all you guys this stuff. We've actually done one Zoom call with Module 1 already. The great thing about the Zoom calls is we're all in the same room. We just ask that everyone mutes their mics until the presentation is done, because there's always going to be a lot of questions, right? So we held one already, and it was awesome. It was great. We got to have one-on-one conversations with people and directly answer their questions to clear things up for them. That's why the Zoom thing is such a great tool for us to use, right? Let's maybe Kathy, you want to tell them about Mod 2?
Yeah, Mod 2 is actually much more in-depth about the Constitution itself, and a lot of people that we talk to in various groups and in person, they all seem to come back with the one question, well, you know, what is the Constitution going to really do for us? I've had several conversations with elderly people who are of the thinking that, you know, I'm 74 years old, I've lived my life, I just want to spend it in peace, you know, with my grandkids. And, you know, I don't think a lot of people really understand how important it is to set up a constitution to, you know, protect your rights and set up government, you know, that's going to be accountable to we, the people. And within Module 2, we discuss all of these aspects that, you know, how life will change when a constitution is in place. And Brenda did phenomenal input into that particular module. So that's what Module 2 is based around. What will a constitution accomplish? And yeah, from there, Brenda, you want to add anything?
Well, what we did was, it was a joint effort. We put together some artwork, some cartoons, some basic things that people actually wanted to see in a constitution. And then in Module 3, we took what a constitution looks like and the body of the Constitution and what it would look like on paper. Without the content, right? So we've got the basic picture of the order of things, starting with a preamble, and then the articles. The first article being how you want to. That's where you want to put the rules for your government. Article 2 would be how you want to Oh, what did I put there? Anyway, Article 2 is more about the social structure that you want to put together, the infrastructure. Module 3 would be how you're going to enforce that. You're looking at the way you want to vote, the voting ages, that kind of thing. So, I mean, each article has tons of clauses, and it can be as short as you want it or as long as you want it. And then Module 4, we discussed, okay, what are these clauses supposed to do? What kind of government do we want? Who rules? What's the name of the game there? What's our end result? How do we want to do that? And until you have enough input, you don't know what kind of government you're going to end up with until people tell you, we want this, and we want this. And so it can't be done by one or two or three or a dozen people. If everybody isn't at the table or hasn't had their voice heard, it's not of we the people. It is of me, the person, saying this is what I want, and let's see who's going to buy it, right? So there is a process, and we go into that in modules 6 and 7, I believe.
Would you mind if I interjected here just for a moment, Brenda?
Sure.
Because basically what Brenda's saying here is that what they've done here is they've created 8 modules. And the modules will walk you through what is the history? That's your first module. What's the second module? That talks about what a constitutional convention is, how to hold a constitutional convention, how to elect the delegates to go there. And then modules 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they talk to the creation of a constitution, the architecture of a constitution, what goes into a constitution, what jurisdiction of law. They also talk about, in one of the modules, the various forms of government you can make with your own constitution. And it's all there, 1 through 8. Literally, you take each of these modules and you come away from that, ladies and gentlemen, with the knowledge of how to actually seat a de jure government through the Constitutional Convention methodology, electing the delegates and creating the Constitution. You should be the ones that get elected as delegates, because you'll understand how the architecture of a constitution works, as well as what goes into a constitution and what doesn't go into a constitution. It's very important for y'all to understand this. These people work tirelessly to put these modules together. I think it's an amazing piece of work. This is historical for everybody and anybody right across Canada, coast to coast, needs to come to these Zoom calls, needs to learn this stuff. I'm going to shut up and turn the floor back over to John, Catherine, and Brenda.
Thanks, Doug. Yes, it's very important that people
John, you need to unmute your mic.
Oops. Yes, thanks, Doug. It's very important for people to learn how we got to where we are today and the rights that we've had, particularly since 1931, right? Which allows us to produce this constitution and seat a de jure government. So in these modules, there's one of the words there, de jure. A lot of people say, well, what the hell does that mean? What's de jure? De facto is another one. Well, we include definitions of these words as we go through our modules, right? Because lots of people don't understand it. For us four to talk about this stuff amongst ourselves, it's common knowledge for us. But believe you me, a year and a half ago, before we got into this, we didn't have a clue what they meant either. But it's all part of the learning process, right? Which brings us to the inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others. And I want you guys to remember those words exactly as I just said them, because we're going to be touching on this in reference to the latest Trudeau gun grab that just happened. But the Richard the Man abolishing taxation. I speak for myself when I say I want a republic government with a common law system. Under a common law system, you're absolutely correct. We will not have any taxation. for the man or the woman, right? Doug's kind of the expert in that area, but I mean, for the people like you and I, no more income tax off our checks, no more sales tax, no more 70% tax at the gas pump. You know, you won't be getting that income tax return at the end of the year. Now you'll be getting it throughout the year. So it's kind of a win-win, right? Because you don't have to fork out that cash, as you should be receiving it. Lots of people say, well, how can that happen? How are we going to pay for healthcare? How are we going to pay for our new government? And how are we going to pay for this and pay for that? Well, we sit on trillions of dollars in resources that have been mismanaged for decades. If our resources, which belong to us, by the way, we the people, if we had control of that and got market value for them, we would be able to pay for healthcare, education, police, government, insurance, dental, everything you can think of, infrastructure, and still have a surplus of money left over at the end, with estimates of about a dividend check between $8,000 and $10,000 a month per person for Alberta, right? For example, because once we get into these modules, we'll explain to you what our lawful definition is on the world stage that's been hidden from us. It's a very deep rabbit hole. And once you start digging down it, you're going to start learning all kinds of things that you took for granted, that this is the way life is supposed to be. And I know myself, my whole life growing up, I couldn't help but think, man, there's just got to be a better way. This is crazy. Everywhere you turn, the government's in your pocket. They got their hand around your neck, squeezing a little harder, and the other hand's in your pocket, taking every last dime you got. Some people got good jobs out there. But what about the avid tradesman like myself, right? And several people that I know that are carpenters and welders, and you're not going to be a millionaire. You know, it's been paycheck to paycheck for years. Carpenters make okay money, you know, but it's not enough. And it's been getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And now here we are, you know, like when I came across this, it really sparked my interest to get involved with it, because I just knew there had to be a better way. And sure as hell, there was. And now I found it. Everything that we talk about, everything that we speak, everything in these modules is all factually documented. You cannot change what's on these documents. This is what history dictates. You can argue it as much as you want. It doesn't change the facts.
So you want to take a minute here, guys. And John was bringing up this little thing about includes. And so I did a show last night with Duke Willis, everyone. And it turns out that the powers that be didn't like what we were saying, Duke and I were saying, and they decided to cut his feed. And so I spoke what John was talking about. I'm going to see if I can work this split screen thing here at StreamYards. So Ed, let's see if this works. I'm going to bring in the document that we got cut off from doing, and it will take only about 5 minutes here to go through it. It's all set up.
It was quite interesting actually last night. I had just tuned in for about 10 minutes. Doug just starting to speak about this. He was mid-sentence and YouTube got shut down.
Ed, can you put it up, the document? Is it there?
The point I'm trying to make is they're censoring the truth, people.
They sure are.
I want you to know this.
What the heck is going on there? Why are we not?
Well, we had a black screen there for a moment.
Yeah, that's weird. I put the document I want is.
I wonder. You want me to try, Doug?
Do you have the document?
Yeah, I think I have it handy actually. Yeah, here it is.
Okay. Why don't you see if you can put it
Let
up?
me see if I can screen share here.
Just a reminder here. You have to be in Firefox or Google Chrome to share a screen.
Yeah, I'm in Firefox. So.
Okay. And don't click through it too quick. Just there's a few prompts you may have to hit. So it's in the same page, same browser, just different page, right?
Okay.
Let's see, can you see my screen? Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. That works nicely. Oh, I see. You brought up a different thing altogether. That's not the one I was looking for.
Well, this is includes.
Yeah, but that's all it is. I was going to go through the whole document here. Gosh almighty, I hate this stuff. And it doesn't work properly.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute while we have it up here.
Doug, you want to just email it to me?
Yeah.
Type it over or something?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest way. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen.
And how do you want to? How are you sending this to me?
I'm going to put it into Skype for you. That's the simplest way.
Okay. Oh, do you guys want to discuss this page or not?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, okay. Well, the latest gun grab from Mr. Trudeau, where he says that 1,500 weapons are now banned in Canada.
No, 150.
No, 1,500. I have the schedule. I thought it was 152 until I saw the schedule.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected.
1,500. So when he says that it applies to Canadian or Canada, well, let's look at the Interpretations Act and see what Canada is. It is, for greater certainty, includes the internal waters of Canada and the territorial sea, Canada. So after hearing that, you might want to ask yourself, where does it say land? I don't understand the definition. This definition says that Canada is on the water. And you are absolutely correct. Canada is a ship at sea, which is why we're under Admiralty law. So when Justin made this big exposure the other day of all these guns that are going to be banned, when he banned Canada from owning these weapons, well, I guess he's welcome to go on the ocean and collect them from whoever he wants, because that's their description of Canada, not ours. This act is a government act, of course, and it's good to use their words against them. And to further confirm this, have a look in the Citizenship Act under what a Canadian person is. And it will tell you that a Canadian person is a person born on a Canadian registered vessel or a Canadian registered aircraft. Wasn't that something? I always thought Canada was the land under my feet until I started digging into this stuff. And Doug had pointed this out to me. For anybody that wants a copy of this, please email me, john@alberta.themythiscanada.ca. I'll put it in the chat here once I stop talking. I'm just going to stop sharing for now. And I'm going back to the screen. Okay. Now
I'm just wondering if Ed could bring up that document that I sent over. Let's see if he can. Ed, can you bring that in?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Give me another 2 minutes if you don't mind.
Why don't we take a break here and bring Rudy Bruce in? He's got an announcement to make, ladies and gentlemen, and I know he's sitting in our green room waiting for us to come in. There he is. Rudy.
It's no longer green anymore.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How's everybody doing?
Good, good. So you're here tonight to put in an announcement. You have something going on, on the 18th of May?
On May 18th, this is for right across Canada, to all the patriots and all the Canadians that are involved, that we would like you to go to the legislator buildings right across Canada. And that starts at 11 o'clock in your time zone, AM. Just head on down to the legislature. It's the March for Freedom for all of our rights and our freedoms, and it's a defiance maneuver. Just take your sign down there, make yourself heard, and show up, because it depends on it. I mean, they're coming at us in stages, and we've got to start pushing back. And the more that we can get it, the more people we can get out there on May the 18th, the better, because that shows defiance. And a lot of these protests are already going in progress. We just want to get a good momentum, a good buildup of people going out there and telling Justin Trudeau to, you know what, and, you know, bring your kids, bring your wife, bring your family, bring down some hot dogs, some pre-made hot dogs, and maybe some drinks, and have a gay old time like Canada Day.
Well, and look what they did in California over the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
that is the number one libtard country of the world. These guys are so democratic that, you know, they tax the air you breathe. And they were out, people were just out by the not the hundreds, but by the thousands and the tens of thousands. It was unreal.
That's
Enough is enough. Rudy, 100%. May the 18th, everybody out of their house, downtown,
just
off
go
in the
on
parks.
down, and Rebel Media is looking after all those tickets. Like, if you get a ticket for this distancing crap, just let Rebel Media know. We'll go over there, and we'll chinwag with them. So don't worry about any tickets or any of that kind of crap, because they can shove them tickets where the sun don't shine on a Saturday morning. So everybody, come on down, meet your neighbors, meet your friends, meet other patriots. We're going to have a great old time that day, and let's see how Mr. Trudeau can handle the numbers of people that end up getting, you know, caught up in this, because everybody's had enough of this crap. You know what I mean? This is only hurting our economy, and that's all it's doing. And, you know, don't buy into the government Kool-Aid. Just come on down and say, hey, enough's enough.
Thank you very much, Rudy. And everybody, we need to get out and support each other on this. The only way that the government is ever going to listen to you is when you take them and you beat them over the head with their own BS.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're just going to continue to do what they do. So it's time to stand up and take a walk outside. It'll be a beautiful day.
Exactly.
Hug your kids, hug your husband, hug your wife.
Yeah.
Do it outside.
Yeah.
Social distancing is designed to work inside only. Doesn't work outside at all. The only reason they give you the only reason they do social distancing outside, and the government is laughing at this, is to see how well they can control you.
Yeah, we got to push back, people. We got to say enough of this bullshit, enough of this crap. And it's not going to do jack shit, this social distancing crap. I mean, like, when you think of all the scenarios where people interact, it is impossible. This is a joke, and we've got to stand up to it. Enough of this. For sure. Yeah. Carry on, Doug.
Thank you, Rudy. I was hoping somebody else might have a comment to follow through on this. Catherine and Brenda, we haven't heard from you for a couple of minutes. Do you want to pipe up and say a little something here? Guess not. Okay.
Well,
thank you.
I suppose I could share my bank experience the other day.
That's funny. Yeah. Please do.
I live in Edmonton, Alberta, the capital, of course. And, well, I applied for the Commie Coins. So I head on down to TD Bank, and they've got these big stickers on the sidewalk, 10 feet apart, not 6, 10. Either side of the main doors, there's 2 lineups to get in, and this Chinaman in the middle with a security guard. So I ended up talking to this other patron there, one of the bank, and a guy that was doing banking, and he was He was waiting for the bank to text him that it's okay to come inside. And as I look around in the parking lot, I see a bunch of people sitting in their vehicles. I'm like, what the hell is going on with this? And he told me, yeah, that's what they're doing. They're making you sit in your vehicle until the bank is clear and you have clearance to come inside. Is that right? Well, I'm going to go talk to Mr. Chinaman over here, I said, and see what's on the go, right? So I went on up there and I said, so what's on the go here? And he says, well, we're going to get your number. Did they get your number already? You know, we'll give you a call. I'm like, what are you talking about, getting my number? I'm a customer at this bank and I'm here to do my banking. What exactly is the problem? Well, you know, the COVID-19 and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we have to get your number and we have to call you when it's safe to come in. When it's safe to come in. When I'm looking at him, he's a meter away from me. I said, where's your protection if it's so unsafe to come in? Why are you in a hazmat suit right now if it's such a big deal, right? Yeah, well, our bank hours are now reduced down to 3 o'clock. I said, what are you talking about? It says 8 o'clock right there on the door. Oh, well, no, it's our new COVID hours. Oh, your new COVID hours. So it's another way to screw the working man. Not only are you robbing us to deposit our money, you're robbing us to withdraw our money. Now you're telling us that we can't come here past 3 o'clock. And I have to wait my turn to get into this bank. That's what you're telling me, right? I have a starving child at home. I need to feed him. I need to cash this government commie coin check right now. I got to feed my kids. And I almost went on to, which guy am I robbing before I leave here so that I can feed my kids today? And, well, I mean, I did elaborate the story a bit, right? But nonetheless, I couldn't believe the audacity of Toronto Dominion Bank to implement these measures on people that are starving. There are people, like, when I pulled up in my truck, I seen a guy arguing with this Chinaman, and I can guarantee you this was exactly what it was about. And, you know, there are people starving right now. There are people way more hurting than I am. And it's those ones that people like us need to fight for. That's why we need to stand up. A lot of people don't like confrontation, right? They're afraid to do it. I'm not. I'm not afraid to voice the truth or my opinion whatsoever. Much like Kathy, and that's why we get along so well, right? Because we're not afraid to call it for what it is. You can't change the truth. So, yeah, just beware, everybody going out there thinking that your banking situation is going to be a normal situation. It's not going to be anymore.
Well, it wasn't normal for my son either. He went to a Bank of Montreal to deposit some checks. He had a return on a canceled university class, so they sent him back his money for tuition for that. And he gets to the bank and he goes to open the door, and there's a guy standing inside the doorway, you know, with like a little checklist thing and a pen, and he's like, oh, excuse me, sir, you know, I need to ask you a few questions before you enter the bank. And it's, have you been displaying any signs of COVID-19? Have you had a fever? Have you had this? And Austin's looking at him like, no. And then he's like, well, you know, and have you, and it was like a third degree, you know, like it was 20 questions before he could even get past the guy at the door of the bank. And he comes home and he's just like, I can't believe that they just put me through that. Like, in all honesty, if I was displaying symptoms of COVID-19, do you honestly think I'd be going into the bank? You know, we're talking about a 21-year-old autistic kid who gets it. And, you know, then there's a lady across the street who decides she needs to wear her designer mask to walk 500 meters to her mailbox to get her mail. No comment.
That brings up another very good point. Thanks for reminding me of that. Let's have a look at the last 10 years in life in Canada and how mental health has become such a major problem. And you can't talk to people this way at work. And you can't do this. And you can't do that. And if you got kids, oh, well, you can't talk to them, and you can't spank them. You can't this, you can't that. Okay, so now we've got a mental health issue that's apparently a crisis because it damages people. So they can give people all these medications, right? Here's where Big Pharma comes in. It's all part of this evil plan, people. Okay, so now we've got this COVID virus. Now we got people going to the bank, forced to argue and give personal information to these people. Has anybody thought about the mental abuse and the scale it's going to be on as a result of this false pandemic? We are reaching epic proportions of people that are going to be totally cuckoo. Totally, because this is over the edge. From what society has taught us thus far to where we are today, this is literally over the edge. How does your government plan on fixing that?
I went into Walmart in Battleford to pick up a bag of dog food, and I went up to the checkout, and there was a lady, you know, on the left of me, and I went into that lineup, and it turns out that she ended up working for Walmart. But anyway, I didn't know that at the time. But anyway, she gets up to the conveyor belt. I'm right behind her. There's nothing on the conveyor belt. The other lady, the other customer is already, you know, putting her card in for the cash, you know, and there's this lady ahead of me is just sitting there, standing there with her stuff in the cart. She's not even putting it on the conveyor belt to be, you know. So I've only got one thing, and I says to her, lady, like, why aren't you putting your stuff on the belt here? I mean, like, you're really holding me up here. I only got one thing to buy, right? If you're going to be that slow, let me around you. Oh, well, then we find out she's working for Walmart. And then she tells me, oh, go stand behind that blue line and all this. I said, you don't tell me where to stand. I says, what the hell's going on here? I says, you know, you don't have the right to tell me where I got to be, right? I says, so anyway, so it boils down to they're not going to serve me, right? So I says, fine. I says, I don't have to buy my dog food here. No problem. You just lost a sale. So anyway, I got my dog food down the hill, and it was only $2 or $3 more. No big deal.
And it's just silly, and it's getting sillier. We brought in Cody Holler tonight as another special guest. I brought him in because he was at the outing yesterday in Edmonton down at was it City Hall, Cody, that you were at?
The Edmonton Legislature grounds.
So provincial legislature.
Provincial legislature, yeah.
And I'm hoping that Ed Jamnisek, who is moderating this tonight, will also come in. And I want Cody to talk about what happened down there. And then I would like to bring Ed in to tell us what took place over in Toronto at their Ontario legislative. But let's hear from Cody first, because it was an interesting little piece that you live streamed out of there yesterday. So why don't you give the people the personal touch as you
sure.
Were.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you, Cody.
We thanks for having me on. I guess I went to the rally down at the provincial legislature grounds there yesterday. And as soon as we arrived, there was maybe like 15 people there, and they were scattered out well. You know, they weren't huddling in a major group. We sat down. It was Pat King and I had went there together. We sat down and had a group of people start to collect around us. And I think we got up to we met up with Roberta Shelton and Patrick, who was the gentleman who ended up getting arrested. There was 7 of us sitting down. Well, I think probably about 4 of us sitting down and 3 standing up. And the cops immediately came over, like right away. Within the first 5 minutes of us being there, the cops came over and they said, you guys all have to disperse. You're in violation of social distancing. And, you know, according to the Public Health Act, if you guys don't leave, we're going to fine you. And we're like, according to the Public Health Act, and you say that we're amassing. They're like, yeah, you're in violation of being in a group of larger than 14 people. And I'm like, I don't know. By my count, there's 7 of us standing here. And Patrick proceeded to say, well, how can you show me how this applies to me and us? And then right away, the cop's like, give me your identification. And he said, well, I don't have any ID on me. And the cop's like, you're under arrest for obstruction. We're like, okay, so what is it? Is it under the Health Act? Is this for obstruction? Like, he didn't even do anything wrong. You're making claims that he's standing in a group of more than 15 people. And we started following them and video recording. They wouldn't give a clear answer. The cop ended up citing section 73(1), I believe, of the Public Health Act. And I think I had some 80-some viewers on there, and I made a call out for them to look up that legislation real quick so we could see what it said. And it was making relation to a person not complying with a physician or a medical officer's orders. So I think, that pertains to like quarantining yourself 14 days when you come from out of province or out of country or something like that. But he was in no way under orders to be under any type of quarantine. I think what they were trying to say is that he was in violation of the social distancing and being in a group of over 15 people when that was an outright lie. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. It was an all right turnout. There was probably somewhere between 65 and 80 people at the best of, the height of the gathering there. And there was probably more, but there seemed to be a whole bunch of people scattered at the back of the legislature grounds away from the front where all the action was. And I'm pretty sure that's because the RCMP made a statement right away, right? Tried to push their intimidation factor to keep everybody away,
So I brought Ed in because he was at the Toronto one, and he actually spoke to some police officers down there. Ed, would you mind telling the audience here the difference, how many people were there, what the conversation was with the police officers, etc.?
The only conversation I had with the police officer was, this is a live link because I was videotaping people and their signs and live streaming it on Facebook. So I step off the curb every now and then because a lot of people were right up against the curb. I'd say 80% of the people actually had signs with them. You had kids. I've seen kids as little as maybe 3-4 years old up to elderly people in wheelchairs were there, and everyone in between. Only 2 people were wearing their personal protective masks. The cops were not wearing them. The cops were not social distancing. Very little social distancing going on. A lot of anti-vaxxers were there. There's people with megaphones chanting, people getting excited, cars to be driving up, blaring the horns, get the crowd going. Guys in motorcycles be driving by, doing the old ring, 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 ring on the engine, doing the burnouts, and a lot of waving going on. And you had signs, everything from, again, anti-vaxxers. People don't want to take the vaccine. People protesting Doug Ford. People want to get to work. People want to get to school. It was great. It was a really, really good.
So approximately how many people were there?
Guesstimating on the low end, I'd say 300. On the high side, maybe 500, somewhere in there. I didn't actually count, but easily 300, easily. And I didn't get there at 1 o'clock. It started at noon.
And so the police were like not really caring what was going on. They were there just to watch, make sure no violence broke out or anything like that, I take it.
Pretty much.
Other than that, they just left the people alone.
Pretty much. They were on the other side of the sidewalk. They weren't harassing anyone. There was only a couple guys going in between. But most of them were stepping off, just watching what was going on. And it was basically public safety kind of thing. And they were grinning, got to shake hands with the cops without gloves, without face masks. So it says a lot right there. The only thing they said to me was when I was setting up the PA system, which did not work. I can't believe it. But he said, if you're going to be setting that up, just watch your language. There's kids here. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. Thanks for reminding me. He says, I know people get passionate about what's going on. And that was it. Like, it was totally cool. Like, totally cool. It's almost like they're on our side.
Well, just the opposite took place in Edmonton, did it not, Cody?
It seemed that way. The police didn't have any masks on yesterday. But they did on Wednesday. I was also at the Edmonton Legislature grounds on Wednesday, and there was probably about 150 to 200 people there. And the cops were wearing masks and stuff then. And yeah, after they arrested Patrick and gave him a $1,200 fine, they let him go and then told him he had to leave the legislature grounds because he was trespassing on public property.
Well, that's impossible. If he's part of
Right.
the public, how do you be trespassing on your property?
Right. Yeah, everybody was hammering the cops, right? But you could actually tell that there was a few standing there that were, when all this was going down, they stepped back and they had their head down and were like shaking their head and had a look of like, oh my, like you could tell they didn't want to be involved, didn't want to be there and didn't agree with what was happening, right? So I think there's a little bit of a divide going on there. But more interestingly, I think on Wednesday, there was a larger group of people, obviously. And when the RCMP asked the United We Roll representative, Glenn Carrott, to ask everybody to disperse, which he did, everybody started kind of piling out of there, right? So, but I think they're a little more brazen with when we first got there. Like I said, there was only like 20, 25 people, right? So,
yeah,
like by the time he got arrested.
Well,
It was kind of funny, Cody, actually, because I watched that live a little bit later. I think it was about an hour after it had finished, and you had mentioned 73-1. So I decided I would just go and I would look at the Alberta Public Health Act, and I didn't even get past the first page, and it says date last created was May 2nd, 2020. Last updated May 2nd, 2020. And I said, well, that's all I need to see.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
well, and the problem we're seeing here is, and I had mentioned California. You and I had talked earlier today about what went on in California. What happened a few days ago in Michigan, where they literally all of the patriots walked in fully armed, AR-15s and all open carried, walked into the legislative buildings in Michigan and shut them down. That was the end, right? You know, it's like enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's time.
You
And
betcha.
so- And
It's unfortunate we don't have open carry laws here, and I'm pretty sure if there was a mass demonstration, even if it was a peaceful one of armed demonstrators, that it would be taken as a violent action here in Canada.
Well,
That's an assumption.
you look what happened in Georgia a few months ago, where the governor was going to do the confiscation, and they literally shut down all the streets in Georgia, or Carolina. I'm sorry, Carolina, where they shut down the streets going up to the Parliament building there with all of the people with open carry. There was like 100,000 people showed up. They came from all over the U.S., all from Tennessee, Kentucky, and everything, because this is the thin end of the wedge, where the governor had made this law that they were going to go around and ban all guns. Do you remember that? That happened last fall.
Yeah,
But
I think
once again, a peaceful. Nobody got shot. The guns didn't go and fire and kill a whole bunch of people. The guns stayed where they were, in the holsters of the people that owned them, or around the shoulders of the people that owned them. So the guns were very, very non-violent that day. So I don't understand where these politicians talk about this gun violence all the time. These violent guns go out and kill people. I haven't seen any of that. It's just crazy. But they talk about it all the time. There's gun violence here and there's gun violence there. What do you mean? I've never seen a gun get up and kill people. I've seen people kill people.
right. And if you look statistically in areas where private gun ownership has been abolished or taken away from the people, that there's always a major increase in crime, right?
Well, I used to work in the security business, and the sign that they put up was, "This is a gun-free zone." We always called that's a target-rich environment. And it proved to be just that way for that theater in Colorado, where the guy saw the big sign, it said gun-free zone, and he walked in with his AR-15 and he killed 30 people. I mean, it was terrible, the thing that happened there. But I guarantee you, if the owner of the theater had put, "This is an open carry a theater, and we encourage our customers to carry their weapons while they're here in the theater," I guarantee you that guy would have not gone in that theater, because he would have been It was like that dumb bugger who went to the church in Texas and decided that he was going to go kill some people, and the guy pulled out his gun and blew his brains out. He went right from Earth to St. Peter. Right there in the church. He didn't even have to put him in a casket.
Yep.
But guns save people. The guns, yes, people kill people, but there are more cases that they don't talk about where people have actually killed the robbers or killed the people that were going to try killing other people. And if they hadn't been carrying a weapon, they would have become part of the statistics of being killed by these crazies. And so gun laws don't do anything for the legal and lawful people. Gun laws take the guns out of the hands of the people that are legal and lawful and put them into the hands of the criminals. As a matter of fact, criminals love gun control because it just means when they kick your door in, they know that you're not going to have a gun. They know you're not going to blow their head off because your guns were confiscated.
Yeah, this all ties right into the United Nations agenda and their plan for global governance, obviously, right? The United Nations wants disarmed populations globally because I think they understand that the armed population in Canada, moreover in the United States, is probably one of the biggest deterrents and one of their biggest obstacles to try to overcome when it comes to implementation of forced vaccinations. And the removal of guns itself is going to be a tricky one for them, right?
Well, I mean, look, if they want to force a vaccination on me, how about I take my 357 and force a vaccination on them?
Yeah, lead injection.
Oh, we'll do a little neurosurgery, a quick brain removal.
Well, it
Really
also
low.
fits into the taking of property, right? When they go to pull these rural people in, and try and force them into the city centers. I'm sure they don't want to be walking on a 3-acre property and not really, knowing what this guy's got hidden behind the shed and in the attic and in the back 40, and,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to make it a lot more difficult for them to evict people off of their properties as well.
You betcha. And I think they're really scared of rural communities banding together in defense of one another, right? And
I found this new gun ban interesting because it actually comes into force and effect in 2 years. That now to buy these guns, you can't buy them anymore. It went into effect immediately, but they allowed people to keep their guns. And these particular guns, it'll be hard getting ammunition for them now because they also banned that. But the thing is what I find very interesting is that it's 2 years away. And in 2 years, the likelihood of this government, Canada, having a federal government, is very unlikely. As we see the fiat currency system collapsing right now, and even all the top economists of literally in the Western world are calling for the end of the global reserve currency, US dollar, to end by January of next year or sooner. Some of them are talking about next month. Others have been talking about September, October before the election. There won't be another election in the US. Trump will be the last president of the United States before it breaks up and the empire collapses. Because once the Federal Reserve note denominated as the US dollar is no longer a global reserve currency, it's over for the empire. They're done. Europe will collapse. Big sucking sound you'll hear on the other side of the Atlantic is Europe, the euro going down with the EU. And the worst part of it is we're in the lifeboat called Canada, sitting right beside, tied to the Titanic as it's going down. I'm not kidding. We have, as you know, some of the biggest resources in the world here in Canada. We are probably, if not the wealthiest country for in-ground assets, we're number 2, okay, for in-ground assets in wealth on a world stage. And we're stuck literally with idiots that want to control everything that belongs to us. Because they were so scared in 1931 not to tell the people that they had a right to create a federal authority legally and lawfully. And so today we're in this position now where we have these idiots this is edicts. Okay, they don't create law, they create edicts for their corporation. These are rules and regulations for the corporation. Well, this gives me a really neat intro. Ed, bring up the document. Let's take a look at this document I sent to Ed earlier, just briefly.
If I may, just one more thing, and then I'll get behind the scenes again. Everyone keeps forgetting Trudeau, when he first got into power, he said, what, this is post-national state? He was talking about one world government. He's talking about the UN. Disarming the public is right in in those policies. The puppet is just doing what he said he was going to do. Why are we surprised?
We're not.
I'm not.
Bring up that thing I sent you. This is fun.
All right, here we go.
I'm gonna have you scroll while we go through it, because this is fun. It's a fun doc. I did this on Duke's show last night, but they decided that this was too much information for the public to know, so they pulled the plug on poor Duke. We lost the internet connection. So I figured I'd bring it back up and we'll go through it. It takes 5 minutes just to show you. You'll find this interesting too, Cody. This is fun. So as you can see at the top there, I'm going to open this up on my laptop. And what I'll do is I'll scroll through mine and Ed can scroll down. So right at the very top of the document, this is from the Interpretations Act, okay? And it's the Interpretations Act from the Canadian federal government. And this is what they describe as a province. So a province means a province of Canada and includes the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Well, you know that I've been saying this, the maxim of law that's created about includes. The inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others. So when they talk about a province within their statutes, they're talking about the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Okay, not British Columbia, not Alberta, not Saskatchewan, not Manitoba, et cetera, et cetera. So then we scroll down a little bit further where it says Canada. This is how they define Canada. For greater certainty includes the internal waters of Canada and the territorial seas of Canada. And then they go on to describe this. So they say internal waters in relation to Canada means internal waters of Canada as determined under the Oceans Act, which is another one of their acts, and includes the airspace above and the bed and subsoil below those waters. And then they likewise for the territorial seas. So if we scroll down a little bit further, Ed, from the Oceans Act, and we look at this, it says Territorial Sea of Canada. So I wanted to scroll down where it says determination of the baselines. Now this is really interesting. So section 5.1, subject to sections 2 and 3 above, the baseline is the low water line along the coast or a low tide elevation that is situated wholly or partly at a distance not exceeding the breadth of the territorial sea of Canada from the mainland or an island. So, do they ever make landfall? No, they don't. They can't say from the high tide, it can only be from the low tide, because when the tide goes out, their feet would be on land and then they wouldn't exist anymore. So, as we scroll down just a little bit further, internal waters of Canada. This is from the same Oceans Act. The internal waters of Canada consist of the waters on the landward side of the baselines of the territorial sea of Canada. So what does that mean? It means that they're talking about only the water and not the land. Okay? So, and then finally, from the Oceans Act, I wanted to put this in here. It says rights of Her Majesty. 8.1, for greater certainty in any area of the sea not within a province, so not in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, or Nunavut, the seabed and subsoil below the internal waters of Canada and the territorial sea of Canada are vested in Her Majesty in right of Canada. So, oh my goodness, all of the crown land that supposedly the Queen owns is a lie. She only has a vested interest in the subsoil or the seabed under the water, nothing on dry land. So, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what I was going to say on Duke's show, what jurisdiction do they have over us to take our guns? None. And what I would suggest to people is to learn how to file a jurisdictional motion. And 100,000 people across Canada file a jurisdictional motion into their courts claiming that they have no jurisdiction, because they have to prove they do. By the way, you file the motion that they have no jurisdiction. It's up to them to prove that they do. I think we could shut the country down.
And you're proposing that people do this not in response to an action, but to do it just to file a motion, right? Just outrightly challenging the jurisdiction.
You're challenging their jurisdiction as to why they can't confiscate your gun. Because that's what you're filing it against. You're filing the motion against this act that they say they can come and take your gun. Well, by what jurisdiction do they have? And you have court experience, so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you talk about this. Cody.
Oh, well, filing a motion. Yeah, I guess you'd have to go open a case file and get a case file number. And I don't know, my experiences haven't been that good. Honestly, I haven't been successful with any of my court filings. So, yeah.
Well, that's okay.
They steamrolled over them more than anything.
Well, but you went through their systems, but it's really not that hard. And people, if you're interested in doing that, the best thing to do would be to talk to a paralegal and not an attorney. Don't hire an attorney. Oh my God, that's such silliness.
Well, they have the forms online. You can go to the Court of Queen's bench of Alberta, Ontario, whatever, and in each province, they have listed their different filings. So
there you go.
Find the template for, a motion or I don't know, they call them different things. There's applications, motions, depending on what area of Canada you're in. Or I guess you can't be in the area of Canada, or else you'd have to be in the water, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing. It's easy to throw out a motion. Okay, so one person files, they throw it out. 2 people file, they throw it out. 2,000 people file. Well, it becomes a little more different. 10,000 people file, because there's no cost to doing this. The only cost you're going to incur, ladies and gentlemen, is your time. And the courts are closed today. So go online, do your research. When the courts open, let's have 100,000 people across Canada suddenly file for a motion about jurisdiction on gun confiscation. Well, holy crap. Now they're in trouble. You've given them, you've locked them in. They can no longer function. Like they wanted to.
I could even throw a motion template out. I have piles of those things. I could make a file available for people really easily. Cool. All they'd have to do is put in their information, the courthouse that they're filing it at, and fill out the information. I mean, really, to build one, you're suggesting that people build one based on the information that you just showcased, correct?
Well, it's so simple. It's the Oceans Act and the Interpretations Act. It's all there. It's their documents. You don't have to go anywhere. You can type in Interpretations Act and it'll bring you the PDF file, and you can type in Oceans Act. That's all I did. And then there it is. This is their definition.
You would take that same template and do an affidavit as well, right?
Yep.
So you take that same template and instead you take off the motion section and you put an affidavit, and in that affidavit you have it in numbered sections. And basically what an affidavit does on top of a motion is it acts as you swearing that what is put in there is the truth. 100% the truth is as well as you know it. And then that stands as record in the court, right? Like that stands as your truth for the filing that you made. And for that to be overcome, it has to be refuted, correct?
Well, yeah, exactly. And the whole thing is there. You're using their words. You're not kind of, this isn't a conspiracy theory. No, you've taken their documents and taken their definitions and said, okay, what jurisdiction do you have over me? I'm standing here on the land. You're out there on the Pacific Ocean, or you're out here on Lake Superior. My guns are here with me on the land. I don't live on the ocean. So what jurisdiction do you have on me? And it forces them to prove what jurisdiction they have. And at the end of the day, they have 10,000 of these things come through the courts from across Canada, or even 2,000. It would drive them crazy.
They just shut the courts down.
Exactly.
I'm sure they would, right?
Exactly. How wonderful would that be?
Yeah, because they're saying the courts are shut down, but they are still open. Like I know here in Edmonton, I called and they said that they are still open to accept filings, but they have suspended all non-essential court cases for the time being until a future date not yet determined.
Yeah.
but they are still accepting filings. But honestly, man, even if 100,000 people did it, I think it'd be great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting the idea down, but do you really think that they're just going to give up that easy?
No. It's not meant to. It's not designed to do that. What it's designed to do is expose the fraud that they are, because that's all they can do is come back with the exposure of the fraud. And that is so enlightening. People will go, what? Wait a minute. And that's what we're looking to do here, to expose their fraud. Would they accept the filings? Of course they'll accept them, because you're dealing with a court clerk. Boom, it's done. You know, they stamp it, they give you, okay, thank you very much. Now, where does that motion go? It goes in front of a judge. Judges go through all these things, or what they call judges. The administration goes through them all and then looks at them and either gives them a court date for a hearing or rejects them. Can you imagine a stack of 1,000 of these things on a judge's desk? And
there would probably be a mass message sent out through the judicial system, and they'd be like, do not accept these filings.
No, of course not.
I mean, I even have video evidence of me attempting to file paperwork into a court, and court clerks just flat out denying accepting my filings. They wouldn't accept the evidence I was trying to present in support of the affidavit that they had allowed me to file.
Yep.
And I was even reading off their court rules for the duties of the clerk, and it was to accept all filings, all evidence, all exhibits, and they were flat out refusing to accept the exhibits that accompanied my affidavit, because I think that they were told not to, so that the evidence in support of it wasn't able to be filed, right?
Well, and it would prove to the people themselves that we don't have courts of law here in Canada. We have administrative offices by the corporations. The corporation known as the Province of Alberta, the corporation known as the City of Edmonton, the corporation known as the Government of Canada.
Yeah.
And once people understand that, I had some fun the other day. I went on Dun and Bradstreet and did the Edgar search, and I put up the four corporations: Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, up on the Mintis Canada Facebook page, just for the fun of it. And then I went and I did one of the filings from Canada, and all of their bonds were listed for that filing year. And it was like, oh my God, 30 pages at least. And then they were all hyperlinked to what, so you could go see the bond, or the not the bond, the amount of bonds that were issued at that time. And I said, and my little thing, I put the hyperlink in. And I said, if anybody thinks that Canada isn't a corporation, please go check this out.
Oh yeah.
If you're not convinced at that point, I'm sorry. The Kool-Aid here, I'll give you another tablespoon of cyanide and go drink that.
You can find it for the government of Canada, the province of Alberta, all the provinces, right down to the courthouses, right down to the municipal buildings, right down to the police stations. Everything are all listed as registered corporations. Yeah.
So how does that work for us? That's where they're dealing with us as legal fictions.
Yep.
And ladies and gentlemen, we need to wake up, because we need to bring the common law back, law of the land, onto the land that respects men and women and our unalienable rights.
They'd have to show that we're employees of that those corporations, right? I mean, and we're accepting a wage. Number? Yeah, right. Or are you accepting? Oh, this way. Are you accepting commie coins from them? Getting paid a wage?
Hey, John. There you go. So. It looks like I've taken up a lot of the microphone time here. And does anybody else have anything more to say? What I'd like to do, if you guys would like to come back in, what are going to be the emails that people can email to you to go to these Zoom calls? Before we forget about that. And I'd like for you guys to, John, Catherine, Brenda, either put it up in the chat or just tell the people how they can reach you to do the Zoom calls. And through your email, because you guys are doing it by RSVP. Is that correct, John? I never get that right.
Yes, that's correct, Doug. RSVP.
Okay.
I'll put my Facebook profile on the chat. People want me, and then you'll see the ads that we make, that we circulate through Facebook. We can join our Facebook page, Concerned Citizens of Alberta. You can go to our website, alberta.themythiscanada.ca. And the emails, we're gonna start putting some stuff in chat here. Too much. There's too many words to remember, so we'll have to put them in chat so you guys can write them down and give reference to them later. Email us. Some of you have our phone numbers. Give us a call. You know, let's get off our butts and start doing this.
Well, and start learning. Become the experts in your community, because when and believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the economic collapse is coming. It may not be here in the next 2 or 3 months, but it's going to be here within the next 8 to 10 months. That's pretty much guaranteed. The bankers have no choice. They're doing it, and they're trying to protect themselves against you right now, which was that COVID was one of these things that hopefully they were go, oh well, maybe we can collapse the economy and blame it on the COVID, and then nobody's going to pay attention to us. But it's not working, because people are going, wait a minute, this COVID's fake. Oh, wait a minute, what's happening in the economy? Oh, that's getting worse. Oh, look what the bankers are doing. They're printing trillions of dollars a week to bail themselves out. And what's happening to us? Oh, we get a check for $1,200. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Oh, yeah. Of the 2.2 trillion, I thought this was funny. 800 billion went to 330 million people, and 1.4 trillion went to their buddies. Big business, big banks, and friends. What was it? Somebody said they paid 150 million to the LA Lakers. What? I'm sorry, but are those poor guys homeless?
Essential.
Essential. And here in Canada, it's the same damn thing. You know, oh, we borrowed $2 trillion. Great. How much did you give to 37 million people? Well, $2,000 a month. So about 600 million to 2 trillion. Yeah, over time, it's about right. So what happened to the other 1.4 trillion? Well, we needed that. You did? Like, who needed that? Well, you know, CBC, you know, the multinational corporations. We need to bail out the oil companies that are our friends. Those that aren't our friends, well, we didn't give any money to them. And so, hello, and who does that debt belong to? It belongs to you, the taxpayer. Really? What about odious debt? You're a de facto government. Want to bet it belongs to you and not to me? Anyway.
I just added in the chat my Facebook profile, our alberta.themythiscanada.ca page. You can start learning, seeing what's happening for meetings, and just kind of keeping up to speed on what we're doing and where it's going. Modules will be added to that soon. And I added Concerned Citizens of Alberta, another Facebook group, another great resource with like-minded people to get on and start conversing. Believe it or not, there's other people out there with the same size tinfoil hat. And me too, right? So
I'll tell you what, I'm willing to open a Google Drive. I'll maybe drop that to you, John, and you can pass it out, and maybe we'll build a motion and an affidavit for people, a template with the information in there. Because, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we can get people to file a bunch of them and what would happen. I'm willing to try that out.
Well, exactly. And it's like, okay, let's all go on the 18th of May down to the legislative buildings and support people like Rudy Bruce, people that are out there doing this. These guys are out there all the time. Support people like Cody Holler, who's out there live streaming, Pat King, who's out there live streaming, Ed Jamnisek, who's out there live streaming, Duke Willis, who's out there live streaming. These guys aren't sitting at home. They're not risking, of course, their health, because everybody knows that the coronavirus is nothing more than the common cold. So go figure. But get out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to walk out your front door. Enough is enough. And if it only means that you're going to go file a motion in a courthouse, then that's fine. Go do that and then go lock yourself back up again.
Yeah, and as far as I understand, if you're even afraid of the coronavirus, they are implementing the same measures as in grocery stores and other places like that. They're only allowing so many people in the building at once, and they're making sure that people maintain their social distancing. So
But if
And don't
not,
forget about the accountability that we'll need to pursue after all this is over, people. 48% of Edmonton businesses, their doors are closed permanently. Our country is completely upside down. People have lost everything. So who's going to be accountable for that? Considering it's a fake pandemic, people aren't looking at the big picture. And for the sheep that are watching tonight, which I know there's a few in the audience, just do what everyone else is doing. And what everyone else is doing is starting to stand up. They're starting to say no. They're starting to reclaim our freedom and start to reclaim our rights. Because if we don't do it now, they aren't coming back. This is a test. And we have failed miserably. 80% of the population are sheep. 80%. That's why we keep doing this stuff. To start teaching people what's happening. What is the truth? Don't watch mainstream media. They're not going to tell you what's going on. Watch guys like Duke Willis, like Cody Holler, like Rudy Bruce. Guys are out there, boots on the ground, doing go lives that aren't photoshopped. Real-time videos. And don't forget the sheep guy in the States there. Bah! That got a mask. He's awesome. Watch him. But he's, there's a lot of smart people in this world, but there's also a lot of sheep. Those are the people that we're hoping to conform, essentially, and show them the truth. You can't change the fact, people. Come and learn what they are. We'll be more than happy to walk you through it.
Well, here's the other thing that I think really does need to be pointed out is the powers that shouldn't be have gone to exceptionally great lengths to hide and construe information and make it intentionally confusing and, wipe people out of existence. And it sounds like conspiracy, but once you look at all the documents and you get your head around the fact that we're using their own documents against them, and there are hours and hours of people doing research to make this easy for you to see and easy for you to understand, all you need to do is look. What is taking a look at something? How does that not equate to any other decision you've made in your life? When you go to buy a car, you don't just go to the dealership and buy the first one you see. You do a bit of research and you decide. You look. People need to look at this because there is a pile of information that says exactly what we're saying is the truth. And if you don't look at it, then you only have yourself to blame for what's coming because it's there. You just need to look. It only takes like 10 minutes and you'll go.
It's not just looking at it. It's what am I going to do with this information? How am I going to make this work? It has to start with me, right? It can't start with you or you or you. It's got to start here. And it's got to start here with everybody, not just one or two people. It's what do you do with that information? How can we make this work? How do we put it all together? And how can we make good come out of this garbage? Because that's all it is. We're living in garbage. We've been taught garbage. We've been taught that wages equal shelter, equal food. We've been taught that. We've been taught to be good corporate citizens. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not a good corporate citizen anymore. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of being locked into just this little pissy wage, right? What is it for? Yeah, I brought up my kids. Yeah, I did this. And I've got nothing left to lose. I'm just saying, you know what? The hell with it. People have to understand that they too have been tricked and tricked badly. I think so. Anyway, my Zoom address is just where did I just made it up today.
your Zoom
For the
email
Zoom-
is zoombrenda@gmail.com.
No, it's zoombrenda20@yahoo.com.
There you go. Zoombrenda20, the 20,
at yahoo.com.
.com.
Right.
And that's how you get a hold of Brenda to join the Zoom calls. John and Catherine, they put their stuff up in the chat. You want to write that in the chat, Brenda, you go ahead and do that.
Oh, do you know what? My
iPad won't let you do that.
exactly.
That's okay.
So I'll have it up. I'll have it up on my website. And by the way, Cody, nice seeing you.
Likewise, Brenda. Yeah, it had been a while. I'm not sure what happened there. My computer just completely fried out on me. Shut down. Went black.
Oh no, not a blue screen of death. Ah!
It may be.
Well, mine was giving me a whole bunch of problems yesterday because I've been teaching remotely, and I had to connect within 2 hours. I had to make a connection. I was doing an exam with a student, and we had to reconnect 10 times in the 2 hours. That's how bad the internet was yesterday. So it seems to be fine today. Just, it just happens.
Yep.
I blamed it on the tractor that was farming next door.
And everyone, let's not forget about Doug's website, mythoscanada.ca or themythoscanada.com, where you can go the timeline of events that have happened through history. This is where you're going to find factual evidence. You can go search it out yourself, or you can just go to this site. Doug and his team have done it all for you and for us and for anyone that wants to go look. Everything's there. Come have a look. Learn.
Doug, maybe explain what's going to be coming up in the next little bit for the myth and what it is we're doing.
Well, Jean-Paul Rahim and myself, we had a nice chat this afternoon. I actually introduced Kathy to Jean-Paul this afternoon because Kathy has been doing something that is just absolutely amazing. And I don't know whether she wants to tell everybody what's going on yet, or I don't see why you shouldn't. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I'm just going to mute my microphone and let her rip, Tater Chip. Go for it, darling.
Hint, hint.
Tell everybody what you found, please, and thank you.
Well, I had a conversation with a friend, and through discussing what has happened, we bantered back and forth, and she came out with a statement towards the end, and I kind of took it a little bit to heart. And it was in regards to Russell Rogers Smith. And her comment was, I'm 74 years old. I'm just going to live the rest of my life. I really don't care what some obscure writer has to say. And I felt very, I almost took offense. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I understood that, obviously she did not understand what it was that this man historically has done as far as Canada's position is concerned. So to make a long story short, I decided that I was not going to let the public perception of Russell Rogers Smith be one of an obscure writer. So I took it upon myself to dig down deep into my genealogical background and do a little bit of work. And to make a long story short, I found a mass of information that no longer makes this man just a ghost and just a name on a book. And I actually talked to a living descendant of his today, which was a rather interesting conversation. So I'm in the process of compiling all of this information, and I'm going to do up a presentation so that people understand just exactly that this was a man who ended up dying, in poverty and was buried in a pauper's grave, and should really, be represented as, a hero to Canada, because without what he did, we don't even have this opportunity to write a constitution and set things right, and to, honor him in the way that he should be honored. So that's kind of what I've been up to. And it's been an emotional and exciting day, especially from a genealogical background, because to put all these pieces together in the short time that I've done is really a miracle. I can tell you that it does not happen very often in genealogy, where you can actually make a contact with a live relative of someone deceased, let alone, see their tree and talk to them, and they understand exactly what you're saying. And yeah, it was really exciting. So be on the lookout for that. And I'm working on that as we speak. So that's one of the things that I've been up to.
It was absolutely amazing. I had to bring Jean Paul into the conversation because I had sent him the timeline that she had put together on this. And so I called Jean Paul, I conferenced her in, and they talked for about 35, 40 minutes. And Jean Paul is just blown away because it filled in so many gaps for him because what he did, don't forget that he was the guy that discovered Ho Canada, that actually put it online in 1997, and I found it, and hence it was the final piece of the puzzle for The Myth is Canada. And it's just been absolutely, his wife thinks that I'm going to get him killed. She wouldn't. So last year he decided he wanted to come to Toronto to meet myself and Dwayne and the boys. And she said, you can't go until you transfer all the property into my name. Once that's done, then you can go because they can kill you and it doesn't matter. And every time I call and she answers the phone, she says, it's that English guy from Toronto. Oh my goodness. But it was a wonderful conversation. I thought today it was just great. She had filled in a lot of the gaps for his idea of what happened to Russell back then. Because he didn't have, what she was able to give him today. It was just amazing. And I think what she'll finish up here, and we'll do we'll put together probably a YouTube video for this on his life and his family and so forth. And it's just one of those thank yous to a man who was literally, they danced on his grave, in his pauper's grave when he died, thinking that they had buried him forever and nobody would ever find him. But guess what? We found him.
Doug, can you give the new viewers sort of a short story on who Jean Paul Rahoon is and what his role is in this?
Oh, okay. Jean Paul was the gentleman that found Russell Rogers Smith's book, Ho Canada, in a library archive in Montreal in 1972. And he read the book because it was archived, or read most of it, and then he went away. And he came back a couple of weeks later to get some more information. He took notes and stuff when he was there the first time. And he met the new librarian, which was a woman, and the guy wasn't there. She said, well, where's the gentleman? He said, well, we transferred him. Oh, okay. I would like to get Ho Canada by Russell Rogers Smith, or R. Rogers Smith. And she looks up in the book. It's, well, there's no book here for that in the archive. Excuse me? I was here like 2 weeks ago and I read part of it. And she goes, nope, it's not here. What do you mean it's not here? It's not here. What part of? So he left. And but he had taken good notes and he had written down who the publishers were. And so he called the publishers in New York and he asked them to print him half a dozen copies. And they did, but he had to pay for it up front, $200 it cost him to have it done up front. And then they went to ship it and they wouldn't ship it across the border. They wouldn't allow the books to come into Canada. So he had to get, I'm not kidding, he called a cousin down in Massachusetts and who had an uncle living in Brooklyn who drove into New York, picked them up from the publishers, and then mailed them up to her. She drove them across the border into Quebec and gave them to him. That's how he wound up with 6 copies of the book.
Wow.
And he wound up giving out half of them, gave half of them away. And so he called the publisher back a couple of months later and said, it's me, can I get 10 copies this time? And the publisher said, I'm sorry, but the book, the plates have been destroyed. Excuse me, why would you destroy the plates? Well, they've been destroyed and we can't publish this book anymore. It's gone. So Jean Paul was absolutely flabbergasted that they would do something like that. And what he did over time, this is like in the 1970s. So in 76, 75, 76, he met with Walter Cool. When Walter came to Montreal, they met, and then Jean Paul in the late 70s, early 80s went to Edmonton, and he met with Walter Cool again. And there he was able to talk about the other books. Over time, he accumulated all of Russell's books. He had Ho Canada, Inside Canada, and Alberta Has the Right to Create Its Own Credit. And he also had the pamphlet, Just Shoot Me. That's how he got started on this. He was given this pamphlet back in the late 60s, early 70s, which was written by Russell in New York. So long story short, in the 90s, he digitizes it. He makes it into a PDF file, all 3 books, and he puts them up on this little website called ARRGH, ARRGH.com. And this is a very obscure website. And it's very obscure because it contains revisionist history on, I'm not going to actually tell you what it's on, but it's a very interesting site, or was. And I went on there because I'm kind of into that revisionist history stuff, and there have over 300 books. And so I downloaded everything, and I scroll down, and there it was. What the hell is Ho Canada and Inside Canada doing on this kind of website? But I downloaded them anyways, and I figured, what the hell? I'm going to keep everything because I figured at some point somebody's going to come in and close this website down. And by the way, they did close the website down 2 years later, except not for what I thought it was for. It was the Canadian government reached out to the ISP in this certain country, and they had it shut down because of Russell Rogers Smith's books, not for the other stuff that was on there. But it was too late at that point. I had now downloaded the books, and that was back in 2016. So they'd been up there for a long time. And in reading Ho Canada, it was the final piece of the puzzle for me. The letters patent that was sitting right there in front of me. He says, "The British North American Act, you big dummy." I'm like, holy crap, eureka moment. And the rest is history. And John Paul reached out to us. We reached out to him. Finally, we connected last year. And if you go on to our YouTube channel, and we have it up on the Brighteon channel as well, at The Myth is Canada on Brighteon. I did an interview, a Skype interview with John Paul on that channel, as well as he came to Toronto and we did an in-studio interview, myself, Hugh, and John Paul, last year at that channel's studio, downtown Toronto. So it's a very interesting guy. And now we're going to record he's going to talk for about an hour, and he's going to tell us the entire story from the 1960s and through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s in a concise storytelling manner of how he came about finding this material and how it changed his life. And it's the same way, ladies and gentlemen, it can change yours. If you don't have the books or you haven't read these books, please email me, themythiscanada@yahoo.com, and put in the subject line, R.R. Smith. I'll send you all 3, and I'll send you the deposition that he did with George Barr in the 1940s, which is an eye-opening experience to read this stuff. I mean, this is just amazing. And he was probably the most hated man in Ottawa for the last 20 years of his life, because that's all he did was expose the fraud. I'm done.
Well, it's a pretty extensive campaign they went on there to try to bury it, its existence.
Yeah.
I'm aware of all that.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what you've come across there, Kathy. That sounds really intriguing.
Oh, it is. It is.
The big thing that got me about John Paul Rahoon was that he met Walter Cool. He's had personal life experience with this man, right?
Oh yeah, didn't I mention he's 87 years old this year?
Yeah.
So he is living history, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cool guy.
And it's just more evidence to support the truth. This guy's been there. This guy's known everything we're teaching you for a very long time, but no one's believed him. He knew the very people that found this information way back in the day, but no one would believe them. Believe it or not, sheep go back thousands of years. And they're still present today. Question is, are you ready for the truth?
Well, the bigger part here, and John, this, at the end of the day, I think what I think we're trying to teach people is personal responsibility. And the only way you're going to have freedom, and freedom for your family, freedom for your children, freedom for your grandchildren, is through personal responsibility. And you have to take personal responsibility. You have to take charge of your life and come forward. And enough is enough. You can't keep sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do this for you. The information is here. We're willing to teach you how to do it. We'll stand with you shoulder to shoulder and get it done. But you got to take personal responsibility. You got to get off your can and tune into a Zoom call. Even if it's just for one call, just to pique your curiosity. And then I guarantee you'll be back for all of them.
But you got to ask yourself, what if? What if these guys are telling the truth even about one thing? What if there's more truth to be seen about this? What if? I mean, everyone's sitting at home right now. We're all under the self-isolation, blah, blah, blah. I'm not paying attention to it myself, but, you know, most 80% of the population is. So it's not like we don't have time to do this, right? Like Doug was saying earlier, is it worth 20 minutes of your time to check it out? You know, that's where these modules and these cover pages that we've developed come in very handy, because it speaks to you on a person-to-person level, not a judge-to-person level or a lawyer-to-person level. You know, it's understandable. And we tried very, very hard not to use big words. And that's not to undermine anybody else that can understand the big words. But the fact of the matter is, everybody's not at the same intelligence level, right? And that's okay. That's why we've constructed it this way. So from doing our Zoom meetings with our modules that we've created, we've also created a bunch of text literature which goes in depth on that particular module and explains to you in detail with pictures, you know, of the Canadian Citizenship Act, the British North American Act, who Walter Coole was, who was Russell Rogers Smith, who were all these people, what did they do, what did they find, what happened, and we explain it step by step. We unfold it all on a level that everyone can understand. And if you happen to be super intelligent, well, you're likely going to finish that module in 5 minutes. So for all you smart people out there, you got 5 minutes to spare?
Yeah, we've simplified it. You know, I found when Brenda and John and I were, you know, getting together and trying to put this together, that, you know, for me, it was really, really important. And I know that I bugged Doug a lot about, can we just simplify this a little more for the average person? And, you know, Doug didn't really want to do that. And I found that that was the biggest wall that I hit with people was, you know, you start talking like you sound like Doug.
Well, just a minute. I said I wouldn't do that.
Yes.
But I said you guys should go ahead and do that.
That's right. That's right. So that's pretty much what we did. Was we sat for how many weeks, John, Brenda?
About
3
weeks. 2 weeks.
2
3 weeks.
weeks? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we went through it all, and you know, we tried to, you know, simplify it in accurate terms, and it took us a while, and we were ready to rip each other's faces off by the end of it. But we got her done, and you know, we had fun. I wouldn't trade that for anything. You know, this is all part of standing together, shoulder to shoulder, to get through it. You know, we're here to help anybody understand this information, because it's just that important.
Well, if we couldn't manage to get through creating the modules together, how are we going to manage to get through the conventions process? You know, it's all a big learning experience, really is. And sometimes we just need a time out.
Well, the most important thing one needs to understand at a constitutional convention, it's always about coming to an agreement amongst everybody. You can't put a clause when the Constitutional Convention took place in Philadelphia in the 1700s, late 1700s. They went through weeks of back and forth, just on wordings of certain clauses. Just how would they word it, and the punctuation within the clauses. The Second Amendment, from what I've read in the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers, and in other experiences of the people that were there, it took them over a month to write the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and the way it was punctuated, so that it was clear to the future people. Because look, today, they argue in their courts about the Second Amendment meaning, well, that's for a militia. No, it's not, because the way the punctuation was done, it's not. It's for all people to create a militia, et cetera, et cetera. So you're right to put a constitutional convention together with the delegates. The way I'd love to see this happen is that every clause that's written for the delegation through the convention is put online, and the people then look at those and have input to that by voting yes or no. That's all the input they would have, not rewrite the thing, because then we'd be spending the next 300 rather than the next 3 months. But this way, there's with the people being involved in seeing what's happening there and getting this thing up to a point where everybody has contributed. And that's when I'm famous for saying this. Everybody has a seat at the table and everybody has a voice. And I can see that happening like they did in Iceland. They did that whole constitution in 30 days. They did it online. They elected 50 delegates to write it. They put the clauses up as they were being written for the people to look at for a yes or no answer on. And I think we could do the same thing here. I don't think we could do it in 30 days. I think it would probably take 9 years and years. No, what's going to take long is teaching the people what we have to teach them in order to enlighten them to do these things. Because only we, the people, can write this Constitution. You can't have a guy, oh, I'm going to write the Constitution, and then you guys, you can't do that. It has to be done properly, legally, or lawfully, not legally, but lawfully. Go from there and have that architecture built. What kind of government do you want to see? By the way, each one of these modules will teach all of this. And they're not going to use all the big words that Doug uses all the time. No. They've made it palatable for everybody. And I love what they've done. All 3 of these people are amazing people. And yes, I was kept in the loop all the way through, and I was just flabbergasted every time I read this stuff. I've read every single word and every single module, and I think it's all.
I haven't had a chance to review any of that stuff yet. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Well, you're going to have to come to the Zoom calls, my friend.
Yeah.
And be a student.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. I'll check it out for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there working towards solutions, and that's what it's going to come down to. Like, I don't know. It amazes me. With all the things happening, it's becoming clearer and clearer. I think more people are waking up and realizing the problems as they exist, within our media, within our government, with our police, with everything that's happening. And this is a solution. I mean, there's so many groups out there that are working towards similar ideas, and I think it's amazing. I think it's all the efforts that everybody are making, I think it's what we need. And it's becoming more and more clear every day, especially with these events. And like today, was it yesterday? We were driving around looking for a haircut in Edmonton, and there was actually we weren't looking for a haircut. Actually, that was today. Yesterday, we were just driving around and we saw hairdressers giving haircuts out on the sidewalks, saying that they were doing outdoor haircuts outside of salons and trying to practice social distancing. So today I went out for a drive thinking, well, maybe they'll be doing it again today. Went for a cruise around and not a single one. So I did a Google search just to see and saw on the internet that they were out handing out fines to those businesses for cutting people's hair outside on the sidewalk.
Well, maybe they need some armed guards like the U.S. is doing.
Right. That's what they did there. They had people with guns come and guard their doors. Like, man, I'd love to see some stuff like that happen here in Canada. But
Well, that's another big piece of the pie here, right? Is we need to look out for each other and we need to protect each other. Remember that each other is not the enemy. Help your neighbor. Help
Yep.
your friend. Help your
Yeah,
kid.
stop snitching on your neighbor.
Actually, go over and introduce yourself to your neighbor first.
Yes.
You say, "Hi, I live next door." How many people? I live here in Toronto, of all places, and it's a big building. There's over 100 apartments in this building. I know both my neighbors on both sides of me and across from me. I know people within the building itself, and I did that on purpose. I mean, if you're going to live in a community, you need to know who's part of that community. And if anytime I owned a house or condo, et cetera, same thing. I'd go knock on the door and introduce myself. Hi, I'm your next door neighbor, and I like loud music.
oh, it's important for people to understand that if we don't do something, that we are heading into a communist regime. Like, what we are looking at is literally a dystopian society on the horizon. Honestly, that's what I see.
I actually think it's more of a fascist regime. It's the blending of the corporate government with the corporations, the multinational corporations.
Run by technocratic elites, for sure.
No, technocratic parasites. Elites are a positive connotation. Yeah. Whereas let's give them the term that they actually deserve. They are parasites because they certainly don't want to work for a living because they're failed businessmen. Anybody, you look at the politicians, they're failed businessmen or failed lawyers. Yeah. They never, if they were successful, they wouldn't get into politics. So what becomes of them? They become parasites. They say the money in your wallet actually belongs to me. You're just hanging on to it until I need it. And that's a parasite. And this one quote by a gentleman by the name of Rockefeller, the old man, John D., he said, competition is a sin. And you look at now what businesses are going out of business and what businesses are staying in business. Who got the green light and who got the red light here in Canada? And it's all the big money players who pay the pollies for their elections and all the little guys, the hair salons and the corner stores, et cetera, they're all going bankrupt. Clearing out the competition.
Yeah, and these social distancing, like I heard you guys' discussions earlier where you were talking about the banks. And I made some comments there in the feed, saying that I think it's all just the drive for fear, right? They have to keep that fear level up. So they're putting all these things in place at banks and hospitals and everything to drive the fear. They got to have that fear level up to be able to justify the things they're doing. And it seems to be a double-edged sword. It's working in some cases and working against them in others. But I think largely a lot of the social distancing stuff, like we had discussed, Doug, that any virologist or anyone will tell you that, sure, the social distancing measures for certain things are effective indoors, but outdoors is an entirely different situation, right?
Well, you made a really good point about facial recognition, right, and tracking. Yeah. Please continue. I actually brought that up on Barry's show this afternoon. I did a thing with Barry Prince, and I said my friend Cody Holler, I actually gave you credit for it. so go ahead. No,
it's not about the credit. It's about getting the information out there, man.
I'm kidding. I referenced you on it, and so please tell the audience here what.
It's important to understand that a lot of this technology that they look to bring in, they want to have monitoring through our phones, and with the mass surveillance that's being implemented everywhere, it's facial recognition technology. And that technology doesn't work as well, the tracking and the monitoring, when people are in close proximity to each other. So by implementing this and making this the new normal, in our new reality and the new way of being and all this junk they're pushing down our throat is conditioning us to be in ideal separation for all of these technologies to work at peak performance without any interruptions and stuff, right? For sure. And yeah. That's
So,
my
yeah, I
take
mean-
on it. That ties into the ID 2020. You look at China and their social credit systems, all are operating on that. I was having a discussion with a gentleman today. Actually, he's trying to start a group to get everybody to drop their cell phones as of July 1st, which is a pretty big thing. A lot of people have grown extremely dependent on their cell phones. I mean, really, it's your entire life in a little box that we carry around with us everywhere.
Yeah, but
I call it a fondle slab, Cody.
yeah, but here's the thing, Cody. You don't have to drop your cell phone. You just have to drop your smartphone. You can go onto eBay and you could buy remember the Motorola Razr phones? They're great phones. You can buy them right now for $20 on eBay, brand new, out of China, of course, but that's okay. And pull the chip on your smartphone, leave it at home, stick the chip in to the Razr, and when they tell you, oh well, we're going to have to blah blah blah, you say, well, I don't have a smartphone, I only have a Razr. Oh, now what are they going to do? They want you to download this app so that they can track you. Well, if you don't have a smartphone,
yeah,
what can they do? You got I have this flip phone. It works really good. It's my cell phone.
Yeah. I mean, they want to start data mining all of that. The biometrics, like these cell phones have the capability to tell how many steps we've had in a day, all kinds of information, and they're data mining all of that stuff, right?
Absolutely. They track you, where you've been, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I find it quite amazing that there's I don't know whether you knew that, what was it in Idaho? No, not in Idaho. Where were the Mormons from? What state is that?
Utah.
They built this multi-billion-dollar storage facility for storing metadata. And they fired it up a few years ago. And they found that as soon as they turned it on, they blew up about $100 million worth of servers, literally fried them. I'm not kidding. But they replaced them all. They couldn't figure out why they blew up in the first place. And then they turned it back on again, and they fried them again. Another $100 million worth of server. And they finally figured out that the electricity coming in was dirty electricity. And the servers need clean electricity. In other words, it all has to be within a certain bandwidth. Otherwise, it doesn't work. They literally fry the servers. Because these servers are so complex. They're water cooled, they're water chilled, et cetera, all this other stuff that goes on with these things. And they figured out that it will take at least 10 years before they have the technology to turn it back on again. So
you got to understand too how important information is to the people in Utah. Just as an example, back to genealogy, I don't think a lot of people realize that the Ancestry and its affiliates have been sucking up data, census, marriage records, birth records, everything. This is all stored in the same, exact area that Doug is talking about. These people have amassed, it's scary how much of and they just keep buying all of these repositories of documents. And, they're storing them underground, and they own, they're getting pretty close to 3/4 of all the documents in the world are under their control, direct control.
And it's really interesting that the metadata that they collect off of all the cell phones, off of all the computers, et cetera, every month is the NSA does this on a global scale. China does it from their people, but every 30 days they have to delete it all. And the funny thing is that they look for keywords. So keywords in emails or that's spoken, et cetera, is automatically flagged and put off to one side. All the other data is carried and then stored on various servers across the United States, or in China across China, or in Europe across Europe the same way. But they can't keep it for more than 30 days because the next wave of metadata comes in and there's no place to put it. It's kind of like what's going on with the oil right now. 375 million barrels of oil are sitting on the various oceans in super tankers going and doing lazy eggs. Well, and they're still producing oil. Well, the same thing happens every 30 days for metadata. Unless, of course, you're using encrypted emails or encrypted phones, they're flagging you. That's what they flag. That's what they look for, first of all. And if you use keywords like, well, let's go blow up the obelisk in Washington, D.C., and I got some Semtac, and I think that 30 pounds of Semtac should do that. Well, guess what? That's a flag. Oh, my God. I can't believe they caught me. How did they do that? Well, you talked in your cell phone, and you big dummy. They collect everything. And yet, do you think terrorists would actually, they know this. It's not done for protection against terrorists. It's done for protection against us, against them. That's what they're doing it for.
Well, it's built backwards again. Individual privacy is what we should be asking for, and corporate transparency is what we need. And we're getting it ass backwards. The corporations are storing their private data, keeping things secret, and the individual is being raped. There's no other word. Every individual is being raped. And it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Well, I hear you. I agree. And corporations, not just like the big technological corporations and grocery suppliers, whatever, banks, like you're talking governments and stuff as well. Like, I think that anyone who's acting in a capacity as a public official of any kind should be monitored. When they're acting in their duties, that should be the type of stuff that we're monitoring closely, that should be under surveillance, that should be information that is publicly accessible to ensure, that we're getting what we're paying for.
Yeah, they should all have body cameras,
right?
that are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as an elected official. Now you could put that as a clause in your constitution if you wanted to.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
They sure as heck ain't gonna go for that now.
No.
They want it on you, not on them.
That's right.
Sorry, Catherine, go ahead.
No, I was just saying amongst other little tasty clauses that come to my mind, but I won't get into that here.
Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen, and I think we're going to say goodnight. I'm going to have each one of these wonderful individuals that joined us speak to you. I'm going to mute my microphone, and we'll start with Cody down here on the bottom, just below. And anything more you'd like to say to the audience before we sign off tonight, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, to coin an intelligent man I know who always says, get educated to get liberated. I'd like to thank you all for having me on. It's been a long time since I've been a part of one of your roundtable or Zoom or the StreamYard meetings. I think, like you guys were saying, it's really important to get out there, be boots on the ground. When I was broadcasting, I think I was up to like 87 viewers, which is awesome. It's awesome to have that many viewers. But the funny thing is, it's just like the Duke show, like the Rudy broadcast, or any of these other things. It's always the same people watching, right? And we know that we all agree with each other. So now that they're accelerating in their actions, it's time that we accelerate in ours as well. I think it's time for everybody to get out there, be boots on the ground. And, if you have 87 people on watching your feed, that's great. But it would be even better if those 87 people were out at their provincial legislatures, at their town halls, right? And they were doing the broadcasts, showing these events, showing people speaking, showing how many other people agree and see what is happening and how many other people are trying to expose these truths. That way, instead of those 87 people watching the same message that they already agree with, They're out there doing their own broadcast, and it's getting exposed to everybody that they know through their social networks, right? 6 ways of separation, people, and it can go a long ways. And with everything that's happening, I don't think that there could be a better time in history for people to see the importance of getting involved, getting out there, and getting the message out to everybody. We know we can't trust our media, you know. We know we can't trust what they're telling us. We have to be the boots on the ground. We have to be the news, because we know that they're not reliable, you know. And really, I think that if everybody started doing that, that the message would spread pretty damn fast. Yep. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Well, thank you very much, Cody, for coming. And
Yep.
it's you're right. It's been a while since we've had you on, but it's also been a while since we've done one of these. Everybody has been busy doing the modules. I've been writing for the new tutorials, and so we've all had our fingers in other pies as well. And we're going to try to do this a little bit more often, and hopefully you'll be available to come back again and again, because you always have a great POV of what's going on in the world. And I love what you did. Like I say, down at the legislatures where your live streams there, you're not somebody that shies away from or has fear of not of the authorities. I mean, you can't. You have to take personal responsibility. And you're a guy who has how many kids now? 4?
4 kids, yeah.
4 kids. You're a father of 4, and he's an amazing man. I mean, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Cody Holler is doing this not for himself. He knows that, but he's doing it for his kids.
Hey, I ain't perfect. None of us are, but I'll tell you what, knowing that I have 4 kids and knowing they're going to have kids, that is all the motivation I need to get out there. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's not about me. It's not about recognition. It's about showing people what's going on and trying to wake everybody else up and get them on board. That is the sole motivation behind everything.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight, Cody.
Yep,
And
you bet.
I'm guessing we'll move over to Brenda. Brenda, you're going to have to unmute your mic.
Sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
hit the wrong one. I just wanted to say thank you for having me on, and I wanted to just quote somebody. I can't pronounce his first name, but his last name is Jardim, and he was the former minister and constitutional advisor to the Constitutional Commission in Brazil. And he says, Constitution drafting is an exercise for historians, sociologists, anthropologists, philosophers, writers, and poets, and for all the men and women who have suffered injustice throughout generations and have mastered the courage to bare their souls and put them into binding words. So, about constitutions, to leave it to professional politicians is to invite the moral hydra. To leave it to jurists alone is to invite the soulless abstraction of normatism. History can hardly teach a more painful lesson. So he's basically saying, if we want it done right, we have to take responsibility and get it done. We got to get started.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, go on to So Saskatchewan. That's Brenda's Facebook page. And she'll put up the email address where you can contact her to come to her Zoom calls. I know that John and Catherine are going to be doing the same on their Facebook pages. They'll put up their emails for you. And so now I'm going to turn the floor over to Catherine. And
Well, you know, everybody has a part to play in this. And I think right now is a perfect opportunity because a lot of people look at it as, you know, kind of depressing and they get caught up in the rhetoric of it. But I think, you know, if you really want to make a difference, you've got to look at what's positive about the position we've been left in. And that is we have the greatest opportunity right now to change everything to the way that it needs to be, the way it should be, the way it was intended to be. And, you know, you can go back to your job when they finally let you out of the house and you can forget about it. But the problems are never going to go away unless you actually take some kind of action, and everybody has a role to play. You know, some of us are great with, you know, going to protests, and some of us are good at researching, and some of us are great with talking to people, you know, and we need more people to spread this. We really do. So, you know, the more people that come in and learn and spread the word, the faster it's going to happen. If you want to be free, you've got to be involved.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for coming tonight. And I so appreciate the work that you've been doing on the genealogy for Russell Rogers Smith. It's going to be amazing. The work that this lady has done with John and with Brenda on creating the modules, all three of them. Ladies and gentlemen, sign up for the Zoom calls. You're going to walk away with knowledge that you didn't think you could actually retain, and you will be able to. These guys are great. And it doesn't matter, by the way, where you are in Canada. Anybody and everybody can come to these calls. So thank you very much. Good night, Catherine. And Ed,
Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted. I'd love to put Ed on camera here for a moment. Where are you? Ed? There he is. Hello, Ed. Ed is our moderator, but he also had a little place to play in this stream tonight, and he told us what was going on at the Toronto, the provincial legislature buildings down there. So, Ed, I'd like you to, any final words for the audience tonight?
Stand up. If not now, when? If not you, then who? Like, we all got to chip in. And if you're thinking, oh, there's not enough people interested in it, well, if everybody thinks that way, this will never happen. Get yourself educated. The material is to be found everywhere. Get involved. And if you don't believe in it, that's your choice too, and that's fine. But don't hold up. If you know this information, casually share it with your friends. Why would you hold back? I'll get some more of these comments in here.
Thank you very much, Ed. And once again, you've done a wonderful job in what we've done here this evening. And I'm sure the audience appreciates your work, your dedication. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen on Facebook, for being a part of this live stream. And thank you, likewise, the people on YouTube for being a part of this live stream. We really appreciate your support in what we're doing. And hopefully we'll see you on the Zoom calls now that you know that they're available. And tell your friends, bring your family. Nobody has to leave home, by the way. It's all done through your home computers. So all of this stuff, the government says, oh, you can't go to these meetings. Well, guess what? We're doing them online. Come on. Come and learn. Anyways, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday night.